Hey there, thank you so much. Welcome to the Film Fan Club Show. I'm Sam Carrico. Wow, it finally happened. They released the Snyder Cut. Yeah, it started streaming on HBO Max Thursday, and with an R rating and a runtime of just over 4 hours, it finally answers the age-old question. Oh, you didn't like this movie? Well, what if we made it even longer? No, but really, this movie is long, and in true Zack Snyder fashion, it's dark too. Yeah, this movie is so long and dark that my girlfriend left me for it. I'm not kidding. No, this movie is so long that I hear the working title for it was the Iraq War. Yeah, it's so long that Martin Scorsese actually said it was pretty good. This movie is so long that if you start watching it after you get exposed to coronavirus, you'll be done quarantining by the time it's over. I make jokes about the runtime, but long doesn't necessarily mean bad. Just ask my ex-girlfriend. Really, there are a couple of areas that I think could have used some trimming. The overall prospect of being offered double the movie, though, is a no-brainer to me. I'm a pretty big DC Comics fan, and I enjoyed Batman vs. Superman's Ultimate Edition, so I knew what to expect, unlike the cast and crew when they hired Joss Whedon. I do think Warner Brothers has found an interesting strategy of releasing a terrible movie in theaters and lowering our expectations, so that way whenever they make it slightly better for home video, we're like blown away. The CGI is touched up here though, the script flows better, the action sequences are more compelling. I'm telling you, this movie went through its own post-breakup glow-up. This definitely feels more like a Zack Snyder film, but with the added time to breathe, I think this succeeds where some of his other efforts haven't. Characters. Here we get time for each member of the Justice League to be introduced or reintroduced properly, since they didn't get the solo treatment that Marvel gave the Avengers. Amazingly though, I still found the film moved at a brisk pace that never left me bored or uninterested. But I have to admit that I did pause the film and take a nap at the halfway point, which I found to be very helpful. Like I said, the Zack Snyder feel of Man of Steel and BVS is retained here. There's R-rated violence and blood galore, but the tone here isn't quite as bleak as some have pointed out those previous films are. Characters like Wonder Woman get to be hopeful, and characters like The Flash get to be funny. I'll take the Ben Affleck we get here any day over the sad, recently divorced Affleck we got in the reshoots. By the way, Henry Cavill was really good here too, but was anyone else confused by the decision to digitally add a mustache to his face? To me, this movie is a great synergy between studio blockbusters and auteur filmmaking. This is the Lord of the Rings style epic conclusion to the trilogy that Zack Snyder began with Man of Steel, but this movie also perfectly sets up Cyborg, Ben Affleck's Batman movie, and Justice League 2, that it's actually kind of a shame that we'll probably never get to see those projects come to fruition. Okay, we've got a great show for you lined up. Lucas Ledane and David Falley are here to talk about Zack Snyder's Justice League. Let's get right to it. All right, let's meet our panel. He is a film critic for Keeping It Real. David Falley is with us. Hey, David.
Hey there. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, it's good to see you. And he is a film critic for Let's Chat Movies. Lucas Ledane is also here. Hey, Lucas.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing quite well. It's good to see you both. And of course, Zack Snyder's Justice League finally came out. There's been a lot of hype surrounding the film. A lot of people have been excited, saying, you know, after the lackluster 2017 film, that this is going to be, you know, the best thing since sliced bread. So given that kind of preamble, what did you think of the film? Did it live up to what you guys were expecting? What were your general impressions after seeing it, David?
Well, it had to be better than 2017 release. It had to, and it is better. I think it's a whole lot of movie at 4 hours, and I can look back and appreciate what Snyder does, and I respect the fact that as an artist, he was able to put out his definitive version. So I'm happy for him for that. I appreciate that. That being said, because it is 4 hours, it just seems like every piece of film shot is in this version, and that isn't necessarily a good thing. Yeah, overall, I think it's a better movie, and I wish that I had never seen the 2017 version, or that WB would have just held off and waited till Zack Snyder's version was completely done and released it, because it just unfortunately there is kind of a stain there, because we you know had to endure Whedon's version, and let's call it Warner Brothers and Whedon's version. But this is, like I said, better. I wish it was I wish this was all that we had.
Right. Lucas, David mentioned the runtime Is that a problem for you going off of that? What did you like about the film? Did you like the film? What are your general impressions?
I did think the runtime was a bit overly long. Mainly, I just thought the ending definitely could have done with some trimming down, especially certain scenes in the epilogue that didn't really need to be in there. But because it is supposed to be, Snyder's unfiltered vision and really just uninterfered and as Snyder as it gets, I think 4 hours is probably shorter than even Snyder wanted it in the first place. It was probably a hell of a lot longer before that. So I think he probably had to constrain himself just to keep himself to the fore. And I do think it benefits the story a lot, especially compared to the 2 hours we got from Justice League. It's insane how much of a difference even just maybe 10 minutes of context can make to not just characters, but entire scenes and sections of the movie.
Yeah, so I mean, is this thing the best thing since sliced bread? Lucas, does this cross the threshold of making Justice League into actually, a good movie?
I think it definitely is a much better movie. I am much more of a fan, probably than both of you, of Snyder's previous work on DC. So I do think coming into it, I do have a little bit of bias that I'm going to like it. I've wanted to see it for so long. But overall, I do think that Snyder manages to deliver on everything he promised he would, on everything that you would want from a Justice League film. All the characters feel relatively well fleshed out. They get their chances to kind of shine and their good moments as well as their down to earth ones. So, yeah, I would say this is a very successful Justice League film and an even more successful Snyder film.
David, it does seem like there are kind of two tiers to judging this film. What does it do as a Zack Snyder film? And again, is it a good movie? What would you think, and how would you measure both of those metrics?
Well, I mean, there's no denying that this is, a Snyder film through and through. I mean, if you knocked off at least half of the slow-mo action in this movie, you'd probably knock off a half hour. We don't need Lois Lane slow-mo walking out of a coffee shop. I don't care if we're going to see the Zack Snyder cameo in the coffee shop if we go slow-mo. I don't know if you caught that, but
I didn't actually.
Yeah,
I didn't on the first one either.
Yeah, it's just, come on, this slow-mo walking out of a coffee shop to this kind of emo song. Man, nobody is telling Zach, hey man, it's a little bit much. I mean, you got all this slow-mo action going on all over the place. How about just have her walk out of the coffee shop like anybody else does? I mean, plus, isn't it raining? We're going to have slow-mo walking out of a coffee shop and rain? Come on now. Like I said, it's Snyder through and through. That comes with good and that comes with bad. I appreciate his love for comics. Look, I got tons of comics behind me. I love comics too, but I would appreciate a little bit more balance than him putting his stylistic stamp all over the place. And look, I like most of Snyder's movies, even though I don't like them. That sounds weird. So what I'm saying is, I would still put one on just to watch it. And because I like what he's doing, as far as a visual artist and everything, I still think my favorite movie of his is the one with animated owls. So what do I know? But I think it would have been great to have somebody say, "Hey Zach, come on, let's keep the slow-mo for certain action scenes." I know that there's this tendency. It is really weird for me to see a speedster like Flash portrayed in slow-mo. I get it. I know why they're doing that, so we could have more kind of like an immersive connection with what's going on with him. But let's just see him run really fast, okay? It's like, let's see him speed instead of this electric flash and then slow down thing. It's fun once in a while, but maybe some balance, and look, I'm not going to complain here and say this is what Zack Snyder should have done. I'm just saying what I would have appreciated and what I would have liked as a comic fan and also somebody who loves movies. Just maybe some more balance and maybe to do something different with his approach towards action sequences would have been helpful. So Yeah, as a comic fan, this is much better than what Whedon gave us. And I wasn't a huge fan of most of Man of Steel and most of the Ultimate Edition of BVS. Yeah. But again, I would still go back and watch those because I think what he's doing is great. And typically, Cavill is really good as Superman. I don't think that Snyder and the writers have really gotten down, who Clark Kal-El is. But I think if given another chance in his own movie, I think, and given the right writers, I think Henry Cavill could be a great Superman. I think here, this is much better as far as Henry Cavill's Superman. But, we got a little ways to go.
Well, can I ask just what you mean by balance? Because one of the things that I took away from this, at least in comparing it to the 2017 movie, is that it felt more balanced between character moments, individual character beats, and action sequences and all that thing. Do you just mean with the stylistic approach?
I mean with primarily the action sequences and his choices, just because it seems like just about every action sequence has, about 50% slow-mo to it, and that could be just a little bit too much, for some. I agree with you. The movie is a lot more balanced. I mean, it has to be. It's 4 hours, so obviously there's going to be a lot more balance. I love the room to stretch for the characterization of the actors. I thought it was very interesting to see kind of like the difference between the characterization. Yes, I'm glad we're given a lot more for Cyborg to do here, but I thought it was very interesting, especially the choice where when they're talking about resurrecting Superman, in Whedon's version, Diana was vehemently, in disagreement with the whole idea. Here, that's not even there. So I thought that was very interesting. If anybody, it was, Aquaman, who was kind of like, wait, what are we doing here? This isn't right. So it was really interesting how, yes, the skeleton of the story is pretty much the same, but there's a lot of different decisions made that I think for the better that are in this cut. Yeah.
That Diana decision, it seems like one of the few decisions that they changed from the Whedon cut that actually, again, I would have liked to see maybe some pushback from Diana, but that kind of felt a little bit like J.J. Abrams with Episode 9 going from The Last Jedi to The Rise of Skywalker. It's like, well, you thought of that idea, so I'm
Chris Terrio co-wrote both.
Oh, that's a great point. Well, I mean, Lucas, is this too much of a Zack Snyder movie? Or, I mean, are you gonna say to a Picasso painting, hey, I can't tell what's going on here? Do you think there's just enough Zack Snyder isms in this movie? And also, what did you make of the characterization?
I think one of the things I kind of even had to mention in my review is Snyder kind of makes movies for very people like me who take comic books and superheroes and all that, and they love it, but they also love experimenting with it and trying to do new things with it. And that also includes with the characters, which is why certain people don't particularly like his rendition of like Clark Kent. They find him too gritty and not personable enough or too dark. And that's completely understandable. But, I'm one of the people who think, oh, that's great. I've never thought of Superman kind of going evil to the dark side and just tearing everything up and working for Darkseid, like
right. And that was their clear vision for the future of this character.
Yeah, so it's just kind of crazy to me the ideas he can come up with for these characters, and I really enjoy seeing them on screen. But then the main thing that's always kind of drawn me to Snyder's movies is I feel like the way he treats these characters is very much that of Greek gods. And, I'm Cypriot, so I really grew up with Greek myths and Greek mythology and culture, and I really love it. And I think Snyder has a really deep understanding of the fact that they're not just there to kind of look cool. But, the gods have to go through a lot. They sacrifice themselves. They're cautionary tales more than action stories. And I think maybe some people think he takes that cautionary tale side too far, but I really enjoy it personally.
Well, do you lose something there whenever you make these characters more akin to gods rather than take the Marvel approach of just have them all, palling around eating shawarma? Do you lose a level of relatability with the audience whenever you do something like that, Lucas?
I mean, I do think you definitely do, particularly for a large number of people who, to them, they do like their superheroes to be like them and that they can relate to them and see themselves in that character. But I do think it's really nice to have that difference. And I think when you go into kind of Zack Snyder's Justice League, you kind of know you're not going to be getting those characters at this point. So you kind of have to make your decision, really. If you're on board with it, you're going to be on board with it. But because this is so distinctly Snyder and this is his portrayal of these characters up by 100. So if you haven't been a fan of it, this is definitely not going to win you over, and you definitely lose a lot of that relatability for that individual watching it.
David, does Snyder alienate a chunk of the audience by his stylistic approach to the DC cinematic universe? I mean, the Marvel films, a lot of their criticisms is that they have kind of a bland appeal to them, but they do have a wide appeal. Has Zack Snyder alienated his audience here?
I don't think so. I mean, if it wasn't for the audience, we wouldn't be watching this, right? I mean, that's the whole online petition to get the Snyder Cut out there. I don't think so. It's not going to be for everybody. And first of all, it's in the superhero genre, so that right there means it's not going to be for everybody. And it's directed by Zack Snyder. Another thing that it means it's not going to be for everybody. But it is both of those things, the superhero genre and Zack Snyder films, have a huge following, and that's fine. I would like to see him mix it up a little bit and do things a little bit differently. But at the same time, I respect his style. I'm not going to ask. I'm not going to ask him to change that necessarily. But if I have to watch a 4-hour cut of something that's all Zack Snyder, it does get a little tedious. Now I'm talking about pretty much just how the story is paced and certain action sequences. Even though I like the superhero genre and I like action films and stuff, I think the best ones are some of the low-key, maybe quieter scenes, interactions between characters, because characters is what makes the story, right? So in this movie, because we have more time with the characters and the material is better, it really helps to flesh out the characters. Even I would have watched 20 minutes of Alfred and Diana making tea. I mean, that was awesome. I mean, yeah, I mean, those are things that really, we're talking about Greek gods, and we're talking about DC heroes typically are so powerful, they're like gods. The best stories are when we ground them to our level, or we show flaws, and that's for any story really. It was when we show some kind of multi-dimensions. And here it is kind of funny, because in that scene it's almost to the point of mansplaining, because I'm sure Diana knows how to make a tea, but I think that she really respects Alfred as a person, not just who he is, because there's a lot to respect there, but also his impact on Bruce. Because I think that Bruce and Diana have a great respect for each other, but she really sees the value, and she has an appreciation for Alfred in Bruce's life. So I think that was a great scene, and to me, there's all these little moments that make up the film, make the film better than what it was. So it's not just action sequences and great visual effects and Steppenwolf's armor looks better. It's like, I could give a crap about that. I think to me, what really counts are these kind of one-off scenes and these character building scenes that you don't expect, to be honest.
Lucas, this film is R-rated in true Snyder fashion. Not only does Batman kill again in this movie, but Wonder Woman there and Cyborg, everybody seems to be splattering blood all over the place. Was this the right character, or was this the right approach for Zack Snyder to take to these characters?
I think it's kind of like Zack said himself in response to that, which is this is a world where bad stuff happens, bad people are there, and they're not portrayed as pathetic and stupid and can be flung down in one hit. And I think Snyder kind of tries to really bring a lot of weight and depth to his battles, which also can make them quite violent. And in terms of it coming to Justice League, I do think it works for this particular version. But, you know, if it had been any other director, I don't think they would have been able to make it work as an R-rated film. But I think because Snyder has such a clear vision of how he sees this world and these characters, I don't even think it was probably a question to him. Like, it was always going to be R-rated. And I do think it's kind of just showing the real life implications of if these battles actually happened in real life. You know, people can't just shake off a gunshot in one go and then keep fighting down a mow of other soldiers. It doesn't happen like that in real life.
I had no problem with it, honestly. I mean, it's what, 2-3 F-bombs? That's why. I mean, I don't think it has anything to do with the, you know, climactic final scene. You know, if aliens are going to invade, you know, the Earth, I want my heroes to just go nuts and take care of them by whatever means. You know, the thing is, those F-bombs, okay, let's just say that, you know, the one in the nightmare sequence, whatever. To be honest, I don't think the nightmare sequence really needed to be in this movie anyway. If you're going to trim it, sure, it's cool and everything. But if you need to trim it, if you need to trim anything, that could have just been, you know, jettisoned. Really? Yeah, I think so. I mean, you don't really need it. We've seen it before. It just felt like, oh, yeah, by the way, I still have this extra footage. Oh, Jared Leto, I'm going to call you up. Can you make this happen? Yeah, cool. All right, awesome. For the overall story, did it help? I don't know.
Lucas, you know, obviously sets up what they wanted to do in the future. It's another setup. Was it worth including here?
But is it going to happen? We don't know. You know,
I think the problem with that scene, because that's also a scene I agree feels really tacked on at the end, right? And especially when you're waiting the entire movie, essentially, to see Jared Leto's Joker, and you're like, this is near the epilogue. Where is it?
Yeah.
But I think it would have been received a lot better if it had been put maybe just before the final battle with Steppenwolf, and it's kind of like a warning, like, look, Bruce, if you don't kind of get your stuff together and get this team together and win.
Oh, that's a good point. It could have raised the stakes. This is what could happen if you fail.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, he decided to just pop it on at the end as if it's just kind of like a, hey, see you later, this is all you get. And then they removed the one line that everyone actually really liked.
In society.
And honestly, we can have, now that he's seen this, it's a nightmare. So we don't know if it's a premonition. We don't know if it's going to really happen.
They've left it where they can go either way, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I guess, like, I'm talking about, like, in the world, Bruce doesn't know if this is really going to happen. But because it's a nightmare, now that he's back to being, well, he's starting to be, or back to being pals with Clark, he can have a sit down with Clark and say, like, hey, man, I've had these visions. I don't know if they could come to true. Let me tell you all about it. The key is Lois. Can you just make sure Lois is taken care of and nothing happens to her? Like, really, please? Because I don't want to, you know, go into a post-apocalyptic nightmare sequence again. And it's really affecting my, you know, crime fighting abilities, and I'm not getting enough sleep, and Alfred's worried. You know, I mean, all he has to do is talk to Clark about what's happening and let the rest of the league in on it, and let them know about it so they could prevent it. Yeah, I mean, sure, it's interesting to see what is plaguing a superhero in their sleep, okay? But honestly, it just, you know, it just seems like very indulgent Snyder stuff to me.
In 1 minute, Lucas, should people see this movie?
Yes, you should definitely see this movie, if for nothing else, for the sheer joy of having to watch Justice League without the fear of any objectification of Wonder Woman. It's got a great villain. It's got great characters. The CGI is infinitely better, and the story is much, much tighter.
David, where do you land on it?
Much better story. I have some issues with, you know, some of the ways some of the villains are depicted and the CGI of all that, but I really appreciated the character moments. It's not great, it's good, and that means it's a huge improvement over the Justice League.
Well, we all agree that it was better than Justice League. Thank you guys both so much for joining me, and I appreciate you, and I look forward to following you both in the future. Thanks again.
Cool. Thanks a lot.
And finally, I'd like to take a victory lap. When I finished Zack Snyder's Justice League, I did what I often do. I checked Twitter. And when I did, I noticed that Cyborg was trending. Fans and critics alike were tweeting about how much of an expanded role he had here, and many were calling him the standout character. Brandon Katz of The Observer writes, "In Zack Snyder's Justice League, the character is far more integral, both as a fully realized individual and as a plot component. Cyborg's quest for internal acceptance serves as a parallel for the Justice League's journey." Back in December of 2017, I released a video here on the Film Fan Club called "Why Cyborg Was a Missed Opportunity in Justice League." Here's what I said back then.
He's locked up in his house, he's losing his relationship with his father, he feels like he needs a new purpose in life. Having him join the Justice League by the end of the film, I feel like it could have provided a really human storyline that really just anchors the film, and it could have just made it, have it been seen through Victor Stone's eyes and undergo his transformation internally, and have him feel like he's belonging again. He's belonging again. He's a part of a team. He's a part of something bigger than himself. I think that would have been a great angle.
Little did I know just how far Zack Snyder's original vision would go with this concept. We get plenty of time here to see Victor adjusting to life as a cyborg, but his father dies in the fight against Steppenwolf. It's one thing to lose your sense of belonging because you're not on the football team anymore, but for Victor to lose his father disrupts everything he knows. All he has left is the Justice League, and through his new family, he's able to self-actualize, defeat Steppenwolf, and avenge his old one. But when we're talking about our appreciation for Cyborg in this movie, I can't help but think about Ray Fisher's experience making it. The actor has gone on record saying he did not appreciate Joss Whedon's behavior behind the scenes of the reshoots. He was later backed up by Jason Momoa and Gal Gadot, but that didn't stop Warner Brothers from removing him from the cast of The Flash. This is the same Flash movie that's still starring Ezra Miller because apparently you can choke a fan as long as you don't badmouth Joss Whedon. I'm not saying that the character of Cyborg single-handedly saved Zack Snyder's Justice League, but the elevated and expanded role that the character had here really helped flesh out the film, and Ray Fisher's performance was a key component in that success. If you just look at the man's Twitter account, you'll see that he's been the Snyder Cut's biggest champion throughout the film's release. He shows a clear enthusiasm for the role, and now having seen his performance, we know he's capable of carrying a film. With the Flash movie having the potential to reset the DC-EU timeline, I know the urge to recast Cyborg must be there for Warner Brothers, but if this new version of Justice League can restore Zack Snyder's career, maybe it can do the same for Ray Fisher. Okay, that's our show. I'd like to send a special thank you to Lucas Ledane and David Falley. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you, folks.